Welcome to the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space. Few topics will be off limits, and we have some amazing guests to share with you.
Our intention is that our conversations will spark your own curiosity to create a life that lights you up and inspires you to be kind, thoughtful, open-minded to yourself and others.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m. and all podcast platforms. So, Brian, what are you curious about today?
Hey, everybody. It's Kelly and Elizabeth.
And Elizabeth. I'm guest hosting with Kelly today.
Okay, so if you haven't figured out, Elizabeth and I are both a little punchy to the microphone, and we have a lot of fun working together. So this is going to be a fun one. Okay,
it's true.
Elizabeth, you don't always get to do this. Who are we with today?
We are with Sharon Crowley, who is the owner of the Om Healing Center and the Harmonic Egg in St. Paul, Minnesota. And she was a long time in corporate world and does construction work, right? Yep. And she's also has a background in Ayurvedic healing work, which is also one of the things that I jam with her on. And we're excited to have you in the studio, Sharon. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
Yay!
I'm not sure I hit all the points, so if there's anything else you want to add that I missed.
No, I think you hit all the points. You hit everything. I mean, I've had many positions in life.
You've had many lifetimes in one life.
Yeah, I've tried a lot of different jobs because apparently I'm curious about a lot of things. So.
You are. Well, that segues me into what are you curious about?
I think I'm most curious about what makes people tick. And through my Ayurvedic training, it was all about the root. What's the root? And I think that has been a constant life question for me is why? And what's the underlying cause? Whether it be, friends that I was wondering about or family members I was wondering about or people that you would watch, people you'd aspire to. I always wanted to know why and what was the root. And as I went through a lot of different life stages, either with my own state of being or, as my parents were aging or different losses through life, I would always go back to the why or what was the underlying cause. And that has ultimately led me to this place where it doesn't matter as much about the why other than understanding there's usually something that's contributing. And so if you can kind of get to the root of those things on so many levels, it just opens up your world. And I believe that that's the key to healing, whether it's emotional, physical, or spiritual.
Yeah.
And that's when I found the egg, I thought, that's it. That's the piece that I'm missing. I'd studied Ayurveda, and that got me very comfortable with asking about the root, as far as diet and lifestyle and understanding that like increases like and you balance with the opposite and understanding the basic principles about all of us being made up of varying degrees of, air and water and earth and ether and fire. And
I love when you just said fire, you went fire.
Well, I got a lot of fire.
Yeah, you do. You got some fire, my lady.
And you have to understand, and once you start to embrace the things that are your original constitution and you start to understand how to balance yourself, it's actually pretty simple. I think Elizabeth would probably agree with that.
Yeah, it's Ayurvedic medicine and healing is very intuitive. It's, and you say it well, like what's the root cause and how do you remove the cause so people can heal?
Yeah. And as I was moving along through that and learning the principles of all of it, I kept feeling like there was something else. And when I once we had done lockdown, I was just wrapping up my certification, and I was streaming a ton of the Gaia channel just because I finally had time for the first time in all these years of having many, many jobs and always working, probably working too much. And I was able to take it all in, and I was watching a segment on the Gaia channel that featured Gail Lynn, the inventor of the egg, and I thought, oh my gosh, this harmonic egg, this is it. Like, this is the missing piece for me, you know.
So you're kind of, you've dropped it in a few times, just like then you found the egg and this harmonic egg. For our listeners who might not know that this egg isn't something you make in the morning, do you want to maybe, can you give us a few sentences on what the harmonic egg is? And
Sure. So the harmonic egg is a resonant sound chamber that you sit in, actually you recline in, and it creates this higher consciousness shape. You know, the egg is actually where life begins, and so if you take into account that you're in this resonant chamber with your own energy, there's music that's piped in from either side, and it's long wave format music, and so the files aren't compressed, they're not MP3 files. They are the long wave music, so it's pretty close to listening to it live. And then the acoustics of the egg themselves are amazing. And there's, sacred geometry. And the egg itself is made out of wood, which is a birch and maple, and it's a higher frequency resonant chamber. So you're just basking in your own energy and able to connect up in a way, like most do through meditation or other, different processes to get there, to get to a really peaceful, balanced state of mind. And I think one of the greatest things about the egg is that I'm not in there with folks. I put them in there, and they're in their own energy. And anybody that's sensitive or always taking other people's energy in and not able to separate themselves from it really can feel peaceful and calm and elevate in a way that it's hard to obtain in other facets. So...
yeah, so it's a beautiful combination of sacred geometry, music, sound, healing.
And lights.
And lights. That's what I was going to say.
That was part I didn't cover. Yeah, so there's lights above and below you. They don't change, but every color that's used in the egg has a different frequency and vibration itself and relates to different, chakra systems and organs and meridians, and they all have their own elements. And usually with the nervous system, we work with like greens and blues and purples, and lighter, gentler colors. But as you progress in your sessions, we can get more into the, the fiery stuff, the oranges and the reds and the yellows, which are those lower chakras. And so, yes, the colors don't change, but they are in there with you. And so the combination of the frequency and the instruments that are used and the colors create this amazing sound bath that enables your cellular makeup to vibrate at a really high frequency. But what that translates to is just a very comforting, spiritual, calming, peaceful session. It's 40 minutes of music and 10 minutes of silence. And that silence can be pretty profound if you've really let go and surrendered to it. So,
yeah. What's lovely about what you've created as your space at the center, and it's on University Avenue in St. Paul, correct?
Yep.
That's the address.
Yep. It is 2334 University, and I'm the middle suite there. It's a beautiful old building with very high ceilings. It was a stable at one point for horses, so has really good energy. But we're right off of basically University and Raymond or 280.
And you walk in, and it's just this beautiful, calming space, right?
Yeah, I love it.
And it's like you walk in, and it's like you want to take your shoes off, and it's like this warm hug, and it's just this. It's a safe space to be vulnerable, to open up, to be creative, to be inspired. And then you go in, and you have the two rooms that you have your two eggs. And what are your eggs' names?
Ermid and Jasmine. Ermid is the Celtic goddess of healing. I am Irish and definitely embrace that portion of it. Very old, worldly healing. But Jasmine, that name came to me through a little bit longer of a journey. And ultimately, after I decided upon it, I finally Googled it, and what it came up with was gift from God. And so I felt like it came to me for a reason. So they have different energy. The first one is, as you said, it's like a warm hug or a journey, or I call it my Mother Earth egg. The second one is focused and gets in there, and it's a little bit different. They're both fantastic, and it kind of depends on your energy that day, and it depends on the person. And some people have their eggs that they really like to stick with, and occasionally will switch. And some people like to change it up based on what they're working on that day.
I stand in the middle between the two rooms, and I go, "Who should I play with today?"
Same.
Like, right? And
Yeah.
right. And so sometimes you might have right.
And yeah, just to clarify, it's helpful for people to have an appointment because the door isn't just open for people
correct.
to walk into.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Like
it's all by appointment. You know, you can either book online at www.omoftheegg.com.
and Om is spelled.
OM.
Yep.
And then OFTHEEGG.com. I thought I was being kind of clever with my home of the egg, but it's Om of the egg. So.
Okay.
I love it. The primordial sound of the universe.
I still
bathing
chuckle.
and healing us.
Right.
And what other services do you offer at your center?
Well, on Fridays we offer Tara Ains, and she does some shiatsu, abdominal massage work. She's fantastic. We also have the detox foot soaks, which I think is fantastic for, you know, on one hand you can clean your cellular makeup with the eggs, and on the other hand you can detox your feet in a foot soak, and I think it's fantastic for detoxing everything that we're encountering these days. I also have an aura camera, and Kelly does aura readings on Saturdays. It's pretty fantastic too.
Kelly.
Penrose.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, not Kelly Wagner.
No,
Hi,
sorry.
pop on over.
No.
Yeah, we
I'd
pop
love to
over,
have you.
but-
Yeah. No, and that's about it. I mean, there's also the Ayurvedic consults, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to understand how to balance yourself through lifestyle and diet, as well as working with the egg. On many levels, healing, I think you have to address all of it. And so the egg is, in my opinion, able to address the emotional and the spiritual portions of it, the mental. Lots of times we have imprints on our cellular memory that we may not even be aware of that have been there for 35 years, whether it was a physical injury or an emotional injury, and the egg helps you release it. And the idea is that it goes into your digestive tract and you flush it out and get it out of your tissues.
And that's so you invest in the eggs, you invest in the center, you open your doors, and I
you've
know
just finished Ayurveda health coaching.
Yeah.
how do people find you now organically? And I know you have
Organically.
ambassadors, so I know, and I know Elizabeth and I are one of them. Like where it's like, have you egged
Absolutely.
yet? Okay,
Yeah.
just go.
Right.
Like just do it. Like I just tell people, go, just experience it.
Yeah.
What are other ways people find you? And like, what is when someone shows up at your doorstep, because you know they're when it's your first time, you just kind of show up and you're like, I don't know, I'm here. I've been told I
Right.
need to egg.
Right.
What is it? And that's where you're just like this safe space and this warm hug where you're just like, come on, friend. And I know there's 69 different music that you play, and you
Yeah, it
normally have
keeps
like a
growing.
protocol for.
Yeah, the first session
first
is always your autonomic nervous system reboot. So if your nervous system is in balance, then your body knows what to do and can kick into healing. But without the nervous system, I think you're fighting it all the time, So the first session is, I pick from a bucket of 12, I think it is. And those are all geared around the nervous system. But there's other elements and instruments in the music that can help additional conditions. So if somebody comes in really needing some liver support, which I see frequently, first we do the nervous system, but it may have some flute in the music to help with the liver. So, and then as far as finding me, people just do. And
That's what I was thinking.
yeah, when I opened the business, it was in the middle of, the pandemic, which I thought was going to end any second, and it didn't. And my intention was to have classes and, yoga and meditative classes in addition to the eggs. And I quickly found that people liked the quiet and the privacy of the sessions. And so it ended up working as it should. And everything that I'd done up until that point, as far as my professional career, had really been centered around marketing and understanding that you have to get the word out and do all of the appropriate things. And so I had that inner struggle of, how do I advertise this versus what was actually unfolding and happening in front of me, which was people were just finding it. And it's like it dropped into the consciousness of the right people, and they showed up. And so over the course of the last 2 years, yes, I have these amazing ambassadors that I love dearly, but there's also this element of when people are ready, they'll start looking for sound healing. They'll start looking for frequency medicine. They'll start trying to figure out how to advance their spiritual practice, and this will come in.
That's beautiful. Okay, you guys, ready for the next segment? And this is going to be a fun one. Okay, we'll be back. Hello, beautiful ones. We're back. Today's been a day of just kind of craziness.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good.
It's true.
But
we've had some technical difficulties, but thanks for sticking with us.
We really
it's Callie and Elizabeth. We're back here with Sharon from the Om of the Egg Healing Center.
I still want to do T-shirts, got egg.
Oh, I know.
I think we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work on that later.
So, Sharon, before we broke, you were talking about your background in marketing and how that background in drive and expertise in marketing started to come to odds with what was actually being presented at the egg in terms of people wanting kind of a more serene, quiet space. So it wasn't so much about how many people you could maximize into the space or how many classes you could be offering while people are egging, because the necessary quiet time for that self-healing is really important. Can you back up and tell us, what were you doing before you did your Ayurveda health counseling and had the egg drop in to your life, or 2 eggs drop into your life?
So I grew up in Colorado, and I went to school in Boulder, and went in one way, came out the other. Came out a lot of peace and love, but all about marketing. And I went in being hardcore finance.
Did you really?
Yeah, came out being peace and love, bit of a tree hugger.
How could you not at Boulder, though?
I was going to say, it's kind of in the ether there.
Yeah, it is. And I did a brief stint up in the mountains after I graduated, and then back down to Denver, and had tried a couple of different things and discovered event planning and thought, I'd been working since I was young. I mean, I even had a paper out when I was in 3rd grade. I didn't know how to not work even then. And got into event planning and thought, well, if I'm going to work this hard, at least for a party, that'll be good,
Yeah.
And so
taking your Irish background and the party. And,
yes, exactly. Yeah, good old Irish family. Absolutely.
Which sums it up.
Yeah, and so I came out to visit my middle brother had met a gal on the beach in Puerto Vallarta, and so that's how I ended up here. But he met his future wife, still wife, and I came out to visit and discovered how beautiful it is here, with the lakes and the trees, and even though I was coming from the mountains.
Okay, wait a sec. You went to Puerto Vallarta, and
he did. No, my brother did.
Got it. I was like, how did you get to Minneapolis from Puerto Vallarta? But that's okay.
He went to Puerto Vallarta, met his future bride on the beach, moved back to Minnesota with her almost immediately. I came out to visit. I fell in love with Minnesota and thought, I'm going to do this for like a year maybe.
Yeah.
So I came out for a year, and that was, 94. So I'm still here, obviously. But the event planning world was huge here, travel and events. And so I finally got to travel, and I went traveling and doing event planning, worked with Carlson companies for years.
What was your favorite event that you put on? Top 3.
Top 3. There, I went on trip and out to Australia. And there was an event where you left the hotel in the back of Harleys, a bunch of Harley Davidsons, and we drove up to the zoo, and there was all of these, like Komodo dragons and kangaroos, and I was just in pure heaven because I'd never gotten to be on a Harley, number one, and number two.
You're in Australia.
I was in Australia. Yeah.
Getting paid to do it.
Yeah. And then we headed up to Hayman Island and the Great Barrier Reef, and all growing up, I always wanted to travel, and my parents were from Iowa, and obviously I was raised in Colorado, but my dad used to say, you don't need to go anywhere. Everywhere looks like here. He always would say that.
Oh.
And I was like, how could that possibly be? He just doesn't want me to travel. So I was on this boat, heading up towards Hayman Island, the Great Barrier Reef, and I looked around and I thought, oh my God, it looks just like home. Even there, as I was going up, and the water obviously looked like Minnesota, but, the rocks and the pine trees and the whole thing, and I thought, he's right. A lot of it looks like home. For some reason, I pictured it being otherworldly, and instead it felt like home, and it was so far away. So let's see. Then next event, I don't know. They always involve the big travel ones that I hadn't been to.
Right.
So.
Did you feel like, I love what I'm doing? Like for a long time as you were doing marketing and party planning and
loved the travel and the people, because everywhere you go, you meet people that are open to everything. If they're traveling, you're meeting really wide open people, and I loved it. And the level that you could get to know wide open people on in just 3 to 4 days. They end up becoming people that make a definite imprint in your soul, but you may never see them again.
Right.
And I loved that part of it. Loved it. I learned so much. Everybody's got a different perspective, except there's not that many differences. There's not big differences between people. We all kind of have those similar roots that you come back to, with Ayurveda, no matter what your culture is. We all kind of tick in varying degrees, but we're so similar.
Right.
When did you start to feel like this might not be all there is to my life?
Oh, well.
Like, talk about that transition, because I think a lot of times people start on a path and, they're in harmony with it. And really, if we kind of tune in and pay attention, we might notice that the path is starting to shift or get windy. And
the thing that I found was that, yes, I was getting to travel, but the bulk of my days were spent in corporate muck.
Meetings, spreadsheets.
Yeah. And
logistics.
I think some people are really good at it, and I'm a great generator. I can produce a lot of work, but I get bored and frustrated easily without new ideas.
So she has 2 eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because 1 egg was not enough.
Well, no, you can do so much more with 2, But
soon we're going to have a dozen.
Right?
I'm just kidding.
Well, and the corporate was losing its luster for me, and I had reached certain, I'd moved on to working in magazine, Twin Cities Business Monthly. I worked at for a while, and really felt like I was coming into contact with the best of the best.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had made it, and then I started to realize there was nothing new that was being told to me. There was no great nuggets of wisdom in there. It didn't feel the same.
Okay.
So I shifted gears, went out on my own so I could be free of the corporate meetings and red tape, limitations, I felt like. And was working on my own, and I loved it. And then I wanted to have a baby. And then I really didn't want to travel. The minute I had her, I just wanted to be with her. And so it had always been a curiosity of getting into real estate, so I got into real estate. And that was nice because I could help people find their home. That was
But you didn't just get into real estate. Like, you actually have the license as a contractor.
Yeah.
Which is rare for a woman.
Yeah.
Not impossible by any means. I do have another friend.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
You two should meet. But it's not the norm in that industry. Maybe it's becoming more the norm. I don't know.
It's not the norm. And, I had been doing the real estate thing for about a year just over a year, I guess, and again needed more and got into new construction, and was lucky enough to hook up with a builder that was young and good and excited about doing new things. We got into building universal design homes and handicap accessible homes, and it was pretty fun. But then the market crashed, as we all know, and so I wasn't a contractor at that point. It wasn't until...
So you've brought us to about 2008 at this point.
Yeah. In 2008, I ended up having to enter back into, well, it was more like 2012, but I had to enter back into the corporate life because no longer could you be self-employed and keep doing the things I wanted to do, which is, build homes and of myself, my own homes. So anyway, I went back into corporate. It was kind of devastating for me, honestly. It was hard.
Sure.
But at the time, my parents, we had moved them to Minnesota, and I had entered the, caregiving stage, and I had young kids and stressful, losing a lot during that economic downturn. And so I was hanging on for dear life from about, 2011 until my father passed on Christmas of 18 now, I guess it was. And we had lost my mom 2013. So it had been a really long haul of trying to rebuild economically, trying to come out of a lot of hardship, and then also losing my family. That was tough.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I'll pipe in for a second. What advice do you have for people? I think a lot of people can relate to economic hardship, being in a job that maybe is out of resonance, aging parents, raising children.
But then losing your parents, and then now you're the...
Correct.
Yeah. Well,
how...
I will say this. For all of the left turns that I took, when you're coming up and you're getting your college education and you're doing all your great jobs and you're climbing the ladder, everything feels right. And then when things start kind of falling apart, you internalize it as you have done something wrong, or there's some kind of shame. And I was living with a lot of shame, but trying to keep my head up. And that's one of the things when people come in, there's not much that they can say to me that I haven't had firsthand knowledge of. So there's no judgment other than I completely get it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how I perceive it. I know that they perceive it a certain way for themselves, and that's what we're working with. It has nothing to do with me,
And don't you feel like if we could just lift the shame off the planet?
Oh, there's so much shame.
If we could eradicate that.
Yeah.
Talk about a root cause.
Yeah. And it doesn't.
Remove the cause
You
of
bet.
shame.
It is such a major underlying one. I see it so often. And
I think it's the core of much. And the core of what keeps people small and sick. And not in their full vibrancy or in their self-healing state that you work so hard to create at the home.
Agreed. And I think I spent so much time, on one hand, you can look at it and say, gosh, I've gotten to do all these wonderful things and I'm so grateful for it. But on the other hand, even when I was accomplishing things, I still was loaded with, it's not good enough. I need to do more. I have, I'm not being as nice as I could be. I'm not achieving as much as I should be.
The Buddhist calls that confusion storms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you get stuck in certain, and I think all of us have some level of that we're working to heal and
at times
resolve.
The only thing that would distract it is if I would pour myself into trying to help or save my parents or my brother Michael, or just trying to be a mom that isn't constantly feeling like a failure. They just.
Michael just popped up that he's pretty excited that you're calling his name forward.
Oh yeah, he was my oldest brother, and always a champion of mine. He was unlike most brothers. He was always there, and people couldn't figure out if my mom was my mom, and then Mike was my Mike, and if or my brother, and had she married younger. Even though my dad was present, he was always at work. And so Mike was there. He was there at all of my games, through high school and various events. And he really wanted to teach me how to throw not like a girl. He didn't want me to have a wimpy arm. He was very serious about that. And and I had to be tough enough, that whole Irish thing.
He's showing me like you had to throw a perfect spiral.
Yes.
Totally.
It was like, right? He was just like, she can throw a perfect spiral. I taught her well.
It was a big deal. And I could take a punch like no other, I gotta say.
That's how we end a segment with Sharon taking a punch.
And throwing the perfect spiral.
And then hanging out in eggs. Does it get any better than that?
No.
Okay. You guys, being curious, Kelly and Elizabeth and Sharon, we're just having a good time. And we'll be back. And we're back. This is so much fun. Okay. So
Sharon was saying how she wanted us to kind of dive into the healing journey and how sometimes it's not linear and it's not always easy, but we're really at a pivotal time on the planet where the vibration is shifting and just the heavier energies aren't it's making people uncomfortable because what was once home or felt like home or a baseline isn't the baseline anymore for people. So people are really being invited to surrender and transform. And by surrendering to their guides and higher selves versus just trying to let the brain work it out, right?
But there's fear and there's anger and there's, when you look at people and it's I'm just experiencing, and even though we're doing the work, I would say that I'm actively doing the work every day. I think we all are,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not just pushing stuff down anymore, right?
No.
Or trying to muscle through it.
And,
or take that punch or throw that perfect pass because I might get in, it's a lot of undoing right now and surrendering and releasing.
And I'm absolutely seeing that in the egg. When people come in, when I first started, there was a lot of anxiety. I saw anxiety mostly. And then it would go through phases and I would see patterns showing up, and it seemed to be whatever was happening out in the collective and whatever was happening with the new energies coming in, it would show up in the egg. Mm-hmm. So even people that have been doing work forever, they would come in and they're like, oh, I need to deal with this. I'm going to work with this. And so that's kind of the beautiful thing, even if you're not aware that you need it. When you do surrender and you tap into your higher self, you get to do the work and you also get to release and you get to grow. You get to sparkle and shine,
So I'm going to talk about my cello experience in the egg. It was probably my 5th or 6th session. And I walked into Sharon and I was like, let's crank it up today. Let's do it. Right. And it was, and I just trust, I always walk in and I trust Sharon. I'm like, whatever we're doing, let's do it. Or you can always tell. And this is where you're so intuitive and beautiful. You're like, today we just need to bring you down. Because I normally come in like a little hummingbird and da-da-da-da-da. And no,
never.
No. So on this particular time, I came in and I said, let's do some deep work. And I get in the egg and Sharon brings you in and you get all comfortable and
pause for a second.
Okay.
You said, let's do some deep work.
Yeah.
Okay. Now continue with the story. We just had to highlight the intention you stated.
Yes, I did. Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing us back.
You glossed right over.
Glossed right over. Let's do some big work, deep work. And she closes the door, and the music starts, and it's cello music. And what's the significance of cello music?
Cello is...
it's to piss Kelly off.
Yeah, outside of that.
What it is it can be the undoing for somebody who's trying to hold on to some really deep, emotional, heartfelt things. So the lower cello, you think heartstrings, but the cello itself can really get in there and kind of... the idea is to bring it up and loosen it and let it go. It's not to relive it. It's not to
Roto-rooter it out.
Right.
Right? That's
right.
what I got.
Yeah, but it goes to the heart.
So I'm in there, and normally all my other experiences were just warm hug.
Yeah,
like
nervous
totally
system, happy-go-lucky.
Happy-go-lucky, and doing some astral travel, and you just are just... It's,
getting downloads and uploads.
yeah. Like, everyone's got to egg.
Working on some ancestral patterns, a little dose of that.
And I'm all of a sudden angry, and I'm very angry, and I almost pushed so Sharon has like a little button by the on the chair that if you need to be
a doorbell,
a doorbell that like, hey, like let's pull the ripcord, let's throw the flag on the field. Listen, I was so close to just being like, what are we doing here? And then it was like I got this voice that was just like, this is what you need today. And trust. And then I went into my breath, and then I just really closed my eyes, and I just invited everybody in, and I said, okay. And that's where it was Roto-Rooter. And if you think about it, if you're Roto-Rootering, it's not pretty.
No.
It hurts. There was so much going on. And I remember when it was done, and you came in, and Sharon always comes in and is just so delicate and just so warm and lovely. How was it? And I wanted to throw something at you.
Totally.
Like, why? I just paid someone to do this to me. Like, right?
I know.
And there's a beautiful integration period. So it's 7 days. You cannot egg. Is it 7 days?
You should take 5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days.
Integration itself can take up to 3 days, depending on your session.
Woo! Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah,
like that was, and I think I've had a couple cello experiences, and I'm ready for the happy-go-lucky ones again. But just going back to the audience of just doing the work and to, it doesn't have to be pretty, and it's going to be mucky and crazy and painful or joyous or all the emotions all at once, but it feels good. And after a couple days, I did, as it was integrating, I was like, oh, now I know why I was doing the cello. Like, I got it. Well, I rambled. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, it's all good. But I just want to pipe in really fast is that sometimes the familiar is not exactly what you need anymore.
Nope.
Oh.
And you may be comfortable with the familiar, but it's actually a disservice to you.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we all have, I know I did, I have a whole lot of mechanisms that keep me moving and keep me perky. And
advanced coping mechanisms.
You bet. Fantastic ones. And even now I'll want to have, I want to have an empowerment abundance manifesting session. And I'll get that. No, you still got more work to do. And
meaning that's the theme you want to go into the egg with.
Yes.
And the egg says no.
Well, with every session,
right.
You always go in with an intention for healing. Always,
Yep.
always, because it's like a magic genie lamp, and you get what you need that day. And it may not be exactly what you asked for, but you get as much as you're ready for. Mm-hmm. And it may not be clear to you in that moment, like when you want to hit that bell and really let me have it. In the beginning, I used to feel terrible when I would open the door and see not you, but clients. And then I started to learn through, the months that I was doing that. Now I just react with, oh, thank goodness. I mean, I'm not pleased that you had a difficult session, but I'm happy for you because it's going to be a lot better after this. You're going to be lighter. You're free of it.
Well, it's like when you do the foam. I don't know why I'm thinking of this. So the foam roller, you lay on it with your legs.
There's a different thing to do besides foam rolling that we're not going to get into in this interview, but as a somatic educator, I'm going to say there is a different approach.
Okay.
It doesn't have to hurt so good.
Okay. I'm sorry, I just saw a foam roller.
But our listeners can probably, it's just...
They know where you're going with it.
They know where you're going with it, and I'm just presenting that there is some countercultural options. Not everyone wants them, but there are. It's called re-education of the nervous system and the muscular system and the fascia. Okay, that's my little commercial. Back to the foam roller hurt so good.
I got nothing.
John Cougar Mellencamp moment.
Like, oh my gosh.
Well, and I do want to say one other thing about that. I've had sessions where I check out. You know, one of the reasons I was so drawn to the egg was that I understood when I was going through so much that meditation really helped me. It really helped me, but it was kind of the last thing I could get done when I was under stress. And I mean, it was just not something I could do when I was really hurting, was get peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do some prior work.
Yeah.
That's why it's like later in the 8 limbs of yoga.
Right.
You know, like it's not step one.
No, but getting into the egg, that's all I needed. Because then eventually, I mean, even in my angriest, busiest mind days, it'll wrestle me down. And I will let go and I will surrender and I will get peaceful. And I've had sessions where I sit up and it's over and I open my eyes and there's a whole lot of moisture that came from under my eyelids and I had no idea about what it was about. I just know that I released it. And it's crazy.
Dr. Ladd says keep the emotions in motion.
You bet. And that is something...
Ayurvedic.
That is something that I was comfortable with the fire, but boy, I was not so comfortable with being low or sad.
Yeah.
You know, and the last thing I wanted to do is show vulnerability anywhere. You know?
Well, that's also in your nature, right? Fiery people,
You bet.
the way grief will present is more agitation, doing
Absolutely.
more, and being angry. And no one in this room can resonate with that, as we all make faces. But other people with their constitutions are very comfortable with tears.
Like
and
wanted to throw things at you.
Yeah,
like,
no, I know.
Like, and you come in and you're so lovely, and I just wanted to like shiv you prison style. Like, what did you do to me? Like, right? I get it.
Well, and I mean, let's also give some counter to this is that you can be in the egg and also receive great insights, inspiration,
Oh, yeah.
guidance,
Gotcha.
and opportunities to really sense and feel like, oh, my nervous system is in balance, when my tissues are harmonized and the organs are harmonized and the chakras are in alignment, I can sense and feel myself in a very different way than maybe the baseline that I thought is normal. Because I think we can often be attracted to our imbalance. And I know in my own study with Ayurveda, like learning that imbalance wasn't actually my true nature was like a big aha for me.
Me too.
A few years ago when I first kind of tiptoed into that journey. And that maybe what I was increasing with attracting was more of what was keeping me in a stress pattern, which I think is the root cause of most things connected with shame, and not necessarily in my prakriti or my essence of who I am as a divine being on this planet, which I think each and every one of us is. And Ayurveda really highlights that, and the egg brings us home to that.
Well said.
Yeah,
I
was
couldn't
gonna
have
say,
said that any better.
Glad we recorded that one. So we have a couple moments left of this segment and actually of the show. People that are going to be listening to this who have no idea. Now, you gave the website, and we'll have that again at the end. But they might be curious. What do you want to share with those people?
It doesn't matter what you're expecting or what you want. I really believe that you get what you come in for. And if you can just get a taste of how it feels like to be in your essence, as Elizabeth says, it's fantastic. And so I think it's for everything. And even if it's just your elbow hurts, and it hurts a lot because you injured it 5 years ago, that'll release too. You feel the activation. So anybody that's searching, I think should try it. Truly.
And kids can also egg, can't they?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
So give us a
kids.
little bit on that, because I have 2 teenagers that need to egg.
I have a few that have egged.
Oh.
Yeah, I find that, and even my daughter, teenager, I find that kids have a lot less to unpack. They have a lot less years of trying to be something, trying to compensate all the time for not wanting to show our vulnerabilities. And kids snap back so quick. They can have one session and be right back, massive changes. It's so good for insecurity or anxiety or ADHD.
Okay.
It's a fantastic
Really
tool.
good for anything. It's like the
Really is.
it's
I know.
the salve. It's
that's
not
what
even
I'm
the
saying.
Band-Aid.
Yeah. Okay. So what's your website again?
www.omofthegenius.com. egg.com, Home of the Egg.
Perfect. And you are on University Avenue in St. Paul. And we just want to invite people to be curious. Like, seriously, it's changed my life. I know it's changed Elizabeth's life. I seriously, I go to people, I'm like, have you egged yet? like you're a partner and you're a friend of the Edge community. You're in our directory. I almost just want to say, go egg. Just egg. Just do it, guys.
Sunny side up.
Sunny side up. Explore
Go
it.
egg.
This is Kelly and Elizabeth and Sharon, and today was just, we egged. Like, oh gosh, we should all go egg. That would be really
should go
fun.
egg.
Let's just stop what we're doing and go egg. Being Curious, AM 950. Hey, you guys, Edge Magazine, go check it out. It's a great publication, but I'm a little biased. Have a fantastic one.
It's a beautiful publication. You've poured your heart
Love
into
it, love it.
Thank you for having us. Thanks for having me as a guest